Hi, I'm Todd Keller and I'm with
Travis Keller.
And today we're going to be demonstrating a DTL circuit. Looking at the paper, we have two parts here. We have where our inputs A and B are each 5 volts and one where A is 5 and B is 0. We'll start with the 5 when they're both 5.
So for our calculations, when they're both 5 volts, that means that these two diodes are off, and that means D3 is on, this third diode, and the transistor's on. And this node right here is 1.4 volts. If the transistor's on, that means that it's saturated and that this voltage here is 0.2 volts. Now going over to the simulation.
Over at the simulation, we can verify that the diode over at VA over here is 1.1, which is close enough to our 1.4, and we can see that these diodes are then turned off and the
Transistor's on.
The transistor is on and verified. Then going over to our experiment.
So this is our circuit we built, and right now I'm looking at the junction of the node between the 3 diodes, and it shows that we are at about 1.4 volts, which is good. That means that our diode and our transistor are on. Now if we go over to our collector of our transistor, we can see that it's less than 0.2 volts, meaning that the transistor is saturated. So now going back to part B.
So part B is given that our A here is 5 and our B is 0.
So going to our calculations, now when it's 5 volts and 0 volts, now this diode at 0 volts is on, making this node 0.7 volts. And that means that this diode and this transistor are both off. With this diode and this transistor off, that means the current or the voltage from this source, the current just goes straight to the load. So going to the simulation.
Over at the simulation here, we can see that it's 0.4 at VA, which means that it's going towards one of the sources, and thus our transistor is turned off, and it's outputting 4.9 volts, which is going straight to the load. Over at our experiment.
So now we switched it so one of the inputs is 0 volts and one is 5 volts. Now when we're looking at the node between the 3 diodes, we can see that the voltage is right about 0.7. It's pretty close. So that means that the diode with a 0 volt input is on right now. And now checking to see what the transistor, if the transistor's on or off, looking at the collector of the transistor, we can see that it is 4.93 volts, so almost 5, meaning that the transistor's off and all the current's running down through the load.